Good evening. Welcome to the Grande Prairie City Council meeting for Monday, December 3rd, 2018. I'd ask everyone in attendance to rise and join us in singing O Canada.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to the National Film Board for the images of our country and to an alumni of our very own Grande Prairie Boys Choir for the audio. So we'll move into the adoption of previous council meeting minutes. Can I get an adoption for that set of minutes? Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Bill Given. I move the council approve the last meeting held by November 19, 2018 as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Are there any errors or omissions that we need to correct? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote to adopt them. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And then motion for the adoption of the agenda. Councillor Bressy.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council adopt the agenda as presented with the addition of item 8.2, appointment of public members.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bressy, for that motion. Any discussion or debate on the agenda as recommended? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And this brings us to the delegation portion of our agenda. This is an opportunity that we have at every regular City Council meeting. And we welcome any members of the community to come and present to Council on any community-related matter, so long as it isn't the subject of a public hearing. And I make that point because we do have a couple of public hearings related to some municipal reserve land and the sign bylaw. So if you're here to speak to either of those two issues, then you'll have an opportunity during the public hearing. We did have a couple of groups and organizations let us know that they wish to present this evening, and so we'll start with those that are listed on our agenda. And the first one up is the Grande Prairie Youth Council. I think I see some representatives from the Youth Council, and I invite you to come forward to the presenters table and provide your update to Council. And if we're short a chair, by all means, just drag another one up. Absolutely. Thank you. So the microphones are relatively sensitive. If they're kind of pointing towards your face, you shouldn't have to lean right into them. But please introduce yourselves for Council and for anybody that might be watching.
I'm Danny.
Hi, my name's Andre.
I'm Irene. And we're just going to share a little bit of an update on what we've done the last year and what we're planning to do. So Irene will begin.
Right. So in the last year, we held 2 open mic events. One was our brand launch in the spring and our recruitment launch or recruitment event in the fall, just to get people aware about our group and everything. And then last May, we had our Youth Engagement Awards, where we just acknowledge youth-based organizations in our community and youths themselves. And then we also we took a Red Cross Health Relationships Facilitation training.
Okay, we've also volunteered at some programs: the Zombie 5K Run, the Orange Shirt Day, the Walking with Our Sisters art installation, and one of our previous members, Truly, served on the GP Pride board, and Danny will be volunteering with them as well. And we also served on the 2022 Arctic Winter Games Bid Culture and Experience Subcommittee by providing a letter of support to the Arctic Winter Games bid. And we also distributed booklets and packages during the random Random Acts of Kindness Day.
We have participated in some media interviews raising awareness of Youth Council. We participated in the Santa Parade, and we will be participating in a GPRC-led study on youth belonging and connectedness in Grande Prairie. So we'll be participating as stakeholders in the study and interviewing youth in the city. We will be participating in the Mighty Peace Youth Leadership Summit on December 15th at the Grande Prairie Regional College as well.
Now we're just talking about this summary of our actions, like what we're wanting to do for the next year. So one of our topics, we have three main topics. Our first one is substance abuse. This is important to the Youth Council because substance abuse is very prominent in our youth, which we can see. There's an unhealthy, normalized party culture that we would like to address. First, we'd like to put a heavier emphasis on alcohol and partying. And we're wanting to work with the party program to explore substance abuse education and advocate for this. We're wanting to begin that in February to meet and develop with the Youth Council part of the program. One of our members, Kieran, knows someone from AHS. Her name's Del Ray. We've already contacted with her, and she's coming to present to us in February. And second one was we're wanting to do more research and report on the effects of alcohol and cannabis. And we want to network with the NWFSAD Society and other relevant organizations to learn more about this. And the research phase, we will start that in January and report learnings back to the Youth Council by the end of February. And lastly, we want to develop community partnerships, especially with HIV North and the CSD on opioids response. We want to work with HIV North and use that video CSD is currently producing, and we want to train with them to help facilitate presentations to groups, especially youth groups, maybe even parents, and present them to schools. And we want to educate the youth, and we want to begin building these relationships in January and work with them to determine what else we should do. Okay.
So another one of our main focuses is mental health. So we would like to focus on anxiety, general stress, and depression. And through doing that, we would like to partner with the website gpyouth.ca to assist in the development of resources and information available on that website. So we'd like to promote the website's availability as a resource and begin work in January, and then develop the relationship with the website developers. So we will explore training opportunities through partnership with local mental health organizations to fully understand the needs around mental health. We would like to create somewhat of a resource guide, which will be teaching through storytelling in order to promote healthy self-care strategies, promote healthy emotional regulation, reduce stigma of emotional expression, and include local mental health resources from our community and how to connect with them. We will be starting that work in February with the goal of having training opportunities by March and plan for the resource guide by late spring. We will use the relationships with local organizations to take the resource guide to schools and present as available for students. Our target audience for this is students in grades 5 to 8, and we will be presenting the guide in the fall. With mental health, we've been seeing a lot of youth experiencing issues in this area and want to provide resources to assist with this, as well as reduce stigma and increase awareness.
So our last priority is to create a more welcoming and inclusive community in Grande Prairie, and this is just important to us because Grande Prairie and Canada as a whole is just such a diverse group of people, diverse community, and with that comes with lots of challenges around having many different people from different groups. So we feel that that's something that we need to advocate for. So one of the ways we want to do this is taking advantage of the Healthy Relationships workshop facilitation training that we took by working with school and community drama theater groups to develop a series of skits or short plays that communicate what healthy relationships look like. And our focus is just on combating violence and discrimination in relationships. One idea is to present an evening program that includes a presentation on why healthy relationships are important and how healthy relationships contribute to violence and discrimination prevention. We would also like to partner with community organizations such as the the Youth Emergency Shelter to raise funds and awareness of their work in this area, maybe perhaps by selling tickets to the event. We would also like to build strong relationships with like school drama clubs and theater groups in the community to begin these skits, like development of these skits and plays in January, and then we'll plan for them to happen like through the spring with a possible big event in May. So we also want to explore relationships with local groups that assist with immigrant populations, such as the Grande Center for Newcomers, and we like to take advantage of opportunities to be involved and contribute to their work. The Youth Council participating as stakeholders in a study on youth belonging and connectedness being led by GPRC, and Youth Council provide youth peer-to-peer interviewers to assist in data collection. Yeah, and we also want to provide as much of a youth voice as possible in terms of like our presence on many committees such as the Accessibility Committee and the Advisory Board on Homelessness. We just have some other activities in 2018 that I wanted to include, such as our Youth Week, which is just coming up the first week in May, Youth Engagement Awards in May, and then we want to investigate how other municipalities have structured and formalized the relationship between their city councils and youth advisories. That's pretty much all we have this evening.
That's a pretty awesome list of things that you have been doing, and a pretty aspirational list of things that you want to do. I have to commend you, and a great presentation. Thank you very much. So are there any questions for our presenters? Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I don't know, but I suspect Youth Council might have more on the go than City Council. So thank you so much for your guys for coming in here today to see us, and thank you so much for your work on Youth Council. I think it's so important. I hope we see you guys continue to be engaged on Youth Council and on many other things in our community as you get older as well. I think I'm really excited to hear what you guys find about how youth councils engage with city councils, and that's a conversation I'm excited for us to have with you. And I hope that's something we get feedback from you guys in the new year, is I suspect we're going to be going out to the community and asking what to do with the current composite building when the new composite high school pops up, what to do with that site. And I hope that's something that you guys is kind of on your radar and you can give us some good input on in the new year. I'm looking really forward to having that conversation with you guys. So I don't really have a question, but a few comments, and mostly I just want to say thank you so much for your work. I so appreciate it. I think the rest of council does too.
Thanks, Councillor Bressie. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. It's equally great on this end of the council room to see you guys coming in and presenting, and I hope this is the start of perhaps more visits into City Council and a better connection to your council mates. I really love the passion and the empathy that you guys are showing for just seeing like what the issues are, and believe it or not, they're all pretty symbiotic to each other, from substance abuse to mental health issues and to creating a welcome and inclusive community. I think all three of those topics combined, you could probably roll into, it's all really big on its own, but they're all very, very, very connected. And I just wanted to say thanks again for coming in and telling us about this. Council is working on a couple things in the same direction on mental health, on substance abuse. We have our opioid task force. So I hope that this isn't the only venue that Youth Council finds themselves connecting with councillors, because I know the mayor does a lot of work on the opioid task force and on the community advisory board on housing. The more our youth are being vocal about the issues that they're facing, which I think are pretty relevant in our community, and to growing a healthy community, I think it's better. And I'm so proud to see that you all are seeking out to tackle these issues and find solutions and create more empathy in the young. So again, just a comment, no real questions right now, but maybe one. How can I help?
So, Councillor Thiessen had a question. Do you have any response for that right now, or?
You're doing great already.
That's probably a pretty good answer. I see Councillor O'Toole is also in the queue. Councillor O'Toole.
Yes, thank you very much. I had the opportunity to come to your recruitment night where you had your talent show, and was put on very well. And just a question, how is your recruitment doing? How did the numbers go up since that night? Any one of you can answer it, so I wasn't trying to put anybody on the spot.
So we have a few applications, and we will be meeting with those new people soon, I think within the next couple of weeks. And Then from there, we're keeping our application open to see who we can get and fill up our spots. So we'll still have, I think, 3 or 4 spots left after we take these people.
Excellent. Great. Well, thank you for being so brave to come to council and talk to us. You guys did an excellent job and presenting, and over the last year, you've done a lot of things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. I think Councillor O'Toole, Councillor Bressie, and Councillor Thiessen made it really clear. We certainly appreciate the work of the Youth Council. I want to add my appreciation to the 3 of you for presenting on behalf of your colleagues from the Youth Council, but for all the work that you do on behalf of our community. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we did have another delegation that let us know ahead of time that they wish to be here. I see a representative from the Métis Local, Miss Angie Carrier. Angie, I see that you're there. You're bringing a group with you. Well, welcome.
Yeah, groupie. There you go. You know how it is when Angie says you come,
Here you go.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you very much for our opportunity. I've never had to speak here before, but I come for a special reason, to say thank you. I wanted to be face to face with the council, with the councilmen, and with our mayor here. We've worked so hard this past year. I've been to Ottawa 3 times, talking to Minister Bennett and Phil Pott. We gave them our business plan and explained the need for our elders. It's our lifetime. What we've devoted our life for. Since we were children, we were taught. One of our parents' teachings was look after the elders. And we did. I hauled wood, I hauled water, I brought the food, I cleaned. By the time I was 7 years old, I could make a bed so perfect. Something that we do here too. The elders have been our vision for many, many years. The things they taught us. But what they taught us as a child, I'll always remember, is kindness and love. And that's something we carry with us because that's our lifeline. And when I found out in 2000 here, elders, that we did a survey, Bill, I think I told you that, and found out that the elders were out on the street. They were being abused. It broke my heart. And so we got together with the committees, and we took on the chore of, it wasn't a chore, something we love doing is we're going to work hard, and we're going to bring our elders to a safe place. And we're going to, not only that we learn from them, but we also give them all the tools they needed. It's been a rough road, it's been a journey of hardships, challenges, but of joy and happiness and success. And that we're very proud of. I've been over to see Minister Fian about 4 times. And last month he gave us some people to work with us to write proposal. And I don't know whether he did it because it was hard, he just wanted to get rid of me. But so we're very well prepared, but everywhere we went, they told us, get the land. We can't pay for it. You gotta get the land. And for over 6 months, we've tried, and then all of a sudden, bang, let's go to the city. And here we are already today. Just 3 months ago, Gordon and Angela have been a great help to us, and I really appreciate their help. We don't always know the protocol of what the city does, but I know one thing. This is City of Opportunity, because I'm living it, and many others too. And I just want to thank all of you. Importance. We're helping get rid of homelessness, but our vision is always elders and youth. We got funding we're going to start elders group and also youth group. We'll be looking for partners, but that's not till January. I got promise of money, this, but you gotta get the land. You gotta do this. You gotta do that. But you know what? End of the day, we're going to get it done, and it won't take us 3 years. Because our hope and dreams are, and we're going to work hard towards it. It was the groundbreaking. Bennett, keep your promise. You know, I hope this spring, with everything, with everything that we have, everything that we do, so many meetings, but everything, you come away with something, every meeting you go. And that's been a lesson I learned many years. From my heart to yours, I know this vision of helping our elders, our homeless, getting off the street, putting back community will happen. With a partner like a city, we will do it. I promise you that. Thank you. And we have a small gift. I don't know. I've never done this before, but thank you.
Thank you, Angie. And we certainly appreciate you being here this evening. If you have a gift, I can come up and accept it on behalf of council, if that's appropriate.
I didn't forget your counsel.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much. So I'm going to give you a chance to ask questions and what I would do.
Okay.
So it says, Mayor Bill Given and Council, appreciation for your continuous support, Métis Local 1990. Thanks very much, Angie and Shannon. We do have an opportunity for any questions for any council members that might have a question for the delegation. Doesn't look like there are. Obviously, City Council well understands the work that the Métis Local does in our community and the important role that the Elders Caring Shelter has played. We're very happy to have been able to support the development of the second proposal, and we will see a little bit later on tonight if we can make it official in terms of finding a site for that development, but that is subject to council support. I'm not sure if we can call a card and a trophy, acknowledgement, a bribe or not. Maybe we should have done that after at the end of the meeting. But certainly, but certainly we appreciate your kind words and your commitment to our community. Thank you so much. I don't see anybody with any questions in the queue, so thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Was there anybody else that wished to come forward and make a presentation to council on any matter that wasn't the subject of a public hearing? So I don't see anybody else coming forward, and so I just would remind people that we do have this opportunity at every regular City Council meeting. We always appreciate it if you can let us know in advance that you're going to attend, but if you can't, we're also happy to have you. And we'll move on into our public hearing section of our agenda, and we'll start with item 6.1, Bylaws C-1260-102 and C-1353-1, amendments to the Land Use Bylaw and the Vision West Business Park Outline. I think this is Mr. Drosch.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yes, so the proposed bylaws are amendments to the Land Use Bylaw and the Vision West Business Park Outline Plan to accommodate a rezoning from public service to general industrial. The subject site is in the west side of the city, just south of Highway 43 in the Vision West Business Park. The parcel was collected as MR, which is a process by which the city gains ownership of land during the development process for public uses. It is typically used for parks and schools. The proposed use is a bus maintenance facility for the Grande Prairie Catholic School Board. It is not typical to allow for an industrial use to occur on a municipal reserve site. However, the Municipal Government Act allows municipalities to use MR land for school board purposes, and this qualifies under that criteria. So accommodating this use on the site would help support the school board's operations. The city will continue to own the parcel, and the MR designation will remain on title. The subject parcel is surrounded by land that is intended for future industrial uses or is currently developed for industrial purposes, with some heavier commercial directly to the north. Based on the context of the site and supporting school board operations, administration recommends in favor of this application. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Drosch. So any questions for administration at this stage? We'll have another opportunity to do that after we hear their presentations, but any questions for administration? Councillor Bressie.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if you could walk me through. So if we rezone this land, then it's still our land. Presumably more steps have to be taken for the school board to get use of that land from us. What do those steps look like, and what's council's involvement in those steps?
Mr. Drosch.
Through the mayor. So the city would have an agreement to lease the land to the school board for a nominal fee. There is no further involvement with council. It looks like Mr. Brian Glavin may have more to add.
Okay, Mr. Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Given. The only additional step where council would have involvement with this is that we would likely have a lease agreement with them that would exceed 5 years, and any lease agreements that exceed 5 years, council has to approve. So in that event, we would bring that in front of council.
So, and is that lease expected to be like $1 a year type thing?
Mr. Glavin.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yes, it would be. Yes, it'd be $1 lease.
Okay. Then can I keep on going? Or?
Sure. If you have questions for administration, remembering that we will have an opportunity for anybody to present as well, and then we'll get into discussion and debate.
Totally. I think just my question about this is, have we? So this is an instance where the school board's using land, and that costs the city money in terms of we took this land instead of taking cash in lieu when the area was getting developed, and also we need to service this land with police, fire, maintaining roads, all of that. Have we ever looked at, or are there any agreements in place to make sure that for the Catholic school board, which has a number of students that live outside of the city, that there's municipalities that are sharing that cost, or that we're getting an equitable cost? Has a conversation like that ever happened before?
Mr. Glavin?
Mayor, through this process, we didn't engage in that discussion. The school board came to us looking for help finding a site, and based on our analysis of our available parcels, this was the best fit. However, we didn't explore cost recovery for the parcel.
Along a similar line, did administration or the school board ever examine opportunities outside the city of Grande Prairie in the county of Grande Prairie?
Mr. Mayor, I wasn't part of the actual negotiations or discussions around the parcel selection. I was just provided with the rezoning once that information was decided.
Okay. Mr. Glavin?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm not aware of any such discussions, and the city did not require any discussions to that effect.
Okay. Thank you. I don't see anybody else in the queue. Council, we will have another opportunity with any other questions for administration of clarification if we needed to. I would open the presentation submission portion of the public hearing. Is there anybody that's here this evening to speak to the proposed amendments to the land use bylaw and the Vision West Park outline plan? Is there anybody here this evening to speak to those proposed amendments? I'll ask one last time if there's anyone here to speak to those proposed amendments. Seeing no one in attendance, Council, this would be your last opportunity for questions of administration before we go to discussion and debate and the business arising. So when I close the public hearing, that'd be sort of the end of our opportunity for questions for administration. Councillor Bressie?
My apologies, Mr. Glavin. I just want to make sure that I'm crystal clear in my understanding. So that my understanding is because this would be a 5-year longer lease before this land was actually given to the school board, after this, it would come to council one more time. Did I hear that right?
Mr. Glavin?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yes, as per policy 602, any agreements in excess of 5 years relating to land do need to be approved by council.
Any other questions? Do we have for administration, do we have a sense of the nature of what's being proposed here? Like I know we're not at development permit stage, and certainly there'd be items that would come up in terms of a lease, but what is it that we're trying to facilitate? What kind of development are we trying to facilitate? Mr. Drosh?
So the general nature of the facility would be a large building with some offices and industrial bays for bus maintenance, as well as an outdoor storage component. We have seen drawings for the development application process, but they aren't available for the rezoning.
And does that use exist? Like, is the Catholic School Board currently using a site for that? Like, where does this activity happen now?
Mr. Mayor, this site is currently vacant. I don't know the exact location of the current facilities that the school board uses.
Thank you. Councillor Thiessen?
Yeah, sorry, I've been chiming in and out, trying to decide, waiting to see if there's someone from the Catholic School Board here to talk about it. I guess along those similar lines, I was quite surprised when I read this to read about a bus maintenance facility. I wasn't even aware that the Catholic School Board had their own buses, or maybe it's a revenue opportunity for them to fix other school buses. I'm not sure. At any point, I guess, and please answer if you have the answer, do they have a business plan for this at all that's in line with the request for this zoning?
Mr. Glavin?
Thank you, Mayor Given. We did not request a business plan. I'm not aware of the existence of one.
Okay, I'm a little confused, and largely because, I guess I just wasn't aware of this type of operations inside the Catholic School Board. But yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Thiessen. I don't see anybody else in the queue, and so we will close the public hearing and move on to business arising. To get started, we do need first reading. Typically, we don't have discussion debate on first reading, and we would be able to do that on second reading. And so the first section that we need a first reading on is Bylaw C 1353-1. Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I move the council give the first reading Bylaw C 1353 as being amended to Beijing West Business Park outline plan.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Minhas. So there's no discussion or debate on first reading. I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Minhas, would you give a second reading?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I give the second reading to Bylaws C 1353-1.
Thank you very much, Councillor Minhas. Any discussion or debate on second reading? Oh, sorry, Councillor Thiessen, I saw you in the queue just as I was clearing there. If you want to go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I know this may sound weird, but with no representation from the Catholic School Board, I'm not 100% sold on whether or not we want to give away our industrial land. I know that our administration has probably worked well with the applicant and found the best suited, and to that I commend our administration for it. But I have too many questions here to feel comfortable giving away valuable industrial lands where our competitors and our neighbors all around us, the County of Grande Prairie, is selling their valuable industrial land to developers, so for developable space. The things that I kind of need to know before I can actually vote yes on this is there a business plan? What's the purpose? Is it a revenue generation opportunity, or is it revenue neutral? Is it a need for the Catholic School Board? And lacking any representation from the Grande Prairie Catholic School District, I don't know if I can get behind this one. Land is important, and we just don't have enough of it, and especially in our industrial area. So for that, I'm going to vote no.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would point out that it's not industrial land, it is municipal reserve, so I don't know what the process is for disposing of that potentially, but right now it can't get parceled out. That being said, there's something that I struggle with too, where I think that, as I alluded to earlier, schools do cost us money. And when this is a school board that has a high percentage of students that live outside of the city, that's another area that we're subsidizing residents that don't live in the city. And I don't love, but I get the need to locate actual schools in the city. I think this might be an opportunity for another municipality to carry the weight of subsidizing school boards and to get some equity with them supporting the students that live within them and whose parents pay property taxes to them to this. So I'm inclined to vote against this as well. I don't know how I'll vote tonight because I know we get another chance with the lease. I think I have a very hard sell on the lease. I don't know, maybe I'll get out of the way of the rezoning tonight, but I need to be sold that there's a real need for this to happen in the city, and that the city isn't pulling more than its fair share with the Catholic School Board before I can get excited about us giving land on $1 a year lease.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Bressy. I see Councillor Blackburn in the queue. I'll just enter to say that I won't be supporting the motion or the rezoning or the proposed changes. As council is aware, the city has relatively very small land holdings, in particular ones that are readily developable. And for that reason, I think we need to do our part to ensure that future councils have more flexibility. It is true that at this time, there's not an identified need for this land. But that's sort of beside the point. I think that's the intent of this when council took the land rather than cash in lieu was to say, we may need land at some point in the future for a municipal purpose, and we need to have some available for that. I think that this is a function that either exists today in a place and it must exist somewhere. And so there's no case made on why it needs to move, why this is better, and what the school board's sort of needs are. And in the absence of a very, very well-defined need that couldn't be served anywhere else in the region, my default would be to say we need to protect a very valuable resource, which is the city's land holdings. We just don't have enough. And so for that reason, I won't be supporting this motion. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Given. I think that there were some interesting questions raised tonight about the purpose and the possible revenues, etc., related to this application. And I'm hesitant to vote against it because there may be good reasons that we're yet unaware of for approving this. And so I don't know if it would be in order or not. I'll ask you for that, but I would move to table this bylaw motion, and with the idea that it would come off the table at a time that the Catholic School Board might be willing to come and talk some more about it.
Thank you, Councillor Blackburn. And I will actually maybe look to our planning folks because tabling a consideration of a typical council motion isn't something we would debate or discuss, but there is a slight hitch in that this is the subject of a public hearing. And so our ability, I'm wondering about our ability to accept new information after we've closed the public hearing. And so is there somebody from administration that can give us a comment on that, just about the effect of Councillor Blackburn's motion? Do we really get a chance to table consideration of second reading? And can council consider additional information if it's forthcoming? Ms. Downing?
I would suggest that you close the public hearing and reopen the public hearing. So I guess it would be recessing the public hearing so that it isn't closed, and then new information, the public hearing is still open. Likely advertising would have to take place to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to. But the issue with voting on it is that the Catholic School Board could not reapply for 6 months for the same or similar use. So the advantage to tabling it would be that it wouldn't close it. And there are instances where public hearings are recessed and heard again weeks later or a month later. And if questions come up or if new information. And it could also be the case of just not giving it third reading.
Sure. The only thing about that is that the public hearing was closed before we moved on to business arising. That's our typical process. So that's about the only challenge. So if this isn't passed, the minimum wait time to reapply is 6 months. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, Councillor Blackburn, so just so Council's aware, will absolutely accept the motion to table second reading, but the effect of it doesn't actually allow for additional information to be introduced, from what I understand.
Thank you. With that understanding, I would rather not have made that motion. I think that the school board missed an opportunity, and if they have to wait 6 months to deal with it again, maybe that's the way it needs to happen.
So, Councillor Blackburn, you're withdrawing your...
I will withdraw the motion, yes.
Okay. So is there any... So then we're on second reading. Is there any other discussion or debate on second reading? Councillor Plott.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I also, too, won't be supporting this motion. I do think it's a piece of land that we could find a really good purpose for in our future, and something we haven't really had a chance to discuss. I can appreciate that they're looking for land, but I think, as Mayor Given alluded to, it's very important for us to keep onto our land until we have the highest and best use. This is a very nice piece of land with long-term potential that could lead into other things that the city may need down the road, and I'm not convinced this is the best use of it, so I won't be supporting it.
Thanks, Councillor Plott. I don't see anybody else in the queue on second reading. And if that's the case, then I'll call for the vote on second reading of Bylaw C 1353-1, being an amendment to the Vision West Business Park Outline Plan. Please vote. That motion does not carry. I'm going to look to administration for advice, just in terms of, do we need to rescind first reading, or does it just fail there? I think it just fails. Yeah, okay. And then do we need to carry on to give first reading to 1260-102, or should we just not address it if council isn't looking to move forward? Is there a requirement for us to vote on 1260-102? The city manager is advising me that he doesn't believe so. If council's intention is clear, which I think it was with that last vote, I don't think there's a need for us to consider the second portion of this enabling, these enabling amendments. So we will move on to item 6.2, Bylaw C 1260-100, signed bylaw review. I'd call this public hearing to order, and I would look to administration for an introduction. I think that's Ms. Downing.
Thank you, Mayor Given. The final public hearing for tonight is regarding amendments to the sign regulations contained in the city's land use bylaw. Council directed administration to undertake a comprehensive review of the sign regulations in November 2014. Administration presented the comprehensive list of new sign regulations to Council in March of 2016, and after a few amendments, the proposed bylaws changes were made. In March of this year, administration received a letter on behalf of 6 local sign industry companies requesting for further review of the sign bylaw. A delegation was presented to the IPS committee, and administration then received direction from the IPS committee to prepare amendments for council's consideration. So administration discussed these amendments with the sign industry and held a number of meetings, and policy negotiations took place, all of which would allow reasonable opportunity for sign industry growth while maintaining strong and effective sign regulations. So here tonight, administration completed the review, prepared an amending bylaw, and is here to present council a comprehensive list of the modernized regulations. The proposed amendments were classified using the following categories: third-party advertising, electronic message displays, fascia signs, billboards, and miscellaneous efficiencies. First, third-party advertising. Third-party advertising refers to advertisements that are not located on the premise of the sign. Current regulations only allow for third-party advertising on billboards and event signs. The proposed amendments, if adopted, will allow freestanding signs also to contain third-party advertising as long as they meet certain criteria. Electronic messaging displays. Electronic messaging displays refer to signs that have LED displays rather than paper or plastic signs. current sign regulations allow EMDs to consume 25% of the signable area of a freestanding sign and require a minimum 6-second frame duration. The proposed amendments to EMDs, if adopted, will allow electronic message displays to consume 50% of the signable area of the freestanding sign and will allow the traffic engineer to impose a longer minimum frame duration. The engineering department, the traffic engineering department, did a lot of research about EMDs and the effect on traffic safety, and also consulted with a number of different municipalities and Alberta Transportation, and has looked in detail into the frame duration component. And the next is EMDs on fascia signs. Fascia signs are the signs that are on the vertical exterior of a building of a wall. In the current regulations, they can only contain electronic messengers on the secondary wall of the building. The proposed amendment to the fascia signs, if adopted, would allow the electronic messaging display to be on the primary wall, subject to meeting certain criteria. The next proposed amendment is about billboards. The current sign regulations restrict billboard signs to a maximum square footage of 18.9 square meters. The proposed amendment, if adopted, will allow billboards to increase to 26.2 square meters. This is a 44% increase to the sign of the billboard. And the city has looked at the billboard signs. This was a proposal from the sign industry, and the city didn't identify major concerns with this from a safety standpoint or an aesthetic standpoint. Generally, what they're asking for is a wider sign and not a taller sign, and traffic safety doesn't really differ with the width of the sign being larger, because the distance that you can see the sign as you're approaching it depends on the height. So it's approximately the same distance away from the sign if it becomes wider. So the safety concerns don't generally increase with a wider sign. And we've identified miscellaneous amendments to the bylaw just with using the bylaw. And these amendments do not just to clarify the language and make it easier for our development authority to interpret them. Both of the amendments align with Council's strategic plan, and both in the economy section. Stakeholder engagement took place. The advertisements were done through the newspaper according to the requirements of the Municipal Government Act, and the application was also advertised on the city's webpage. And the city administration met with the sign industry on 3 occasions, and a number of emails. Correspondence also occurred. And at the time of writing this report, there was no opposition to the proposed amendments. We have identified an issue with the time duration of the bylaw and would like to request that if Council approves the amendments, that they consider an as amended to the time duration. The purpose of this is to identify a city proposed minimum sign duration that would range from 6 seconds to 20 seconds, not a maximum. So if you remove the words "and a maximum of," this would correct the wording of this to say a minimum of 6 seconds to 20 seconds before switching to the next copy. So the recommendation is that Council give first, second, and third reading to Bylaw C-1260-100. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ms. Downing. I see a few people in the queue. Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you. I've got a few questions about the change of size. And there's questions about other things, but I'll let other people get in the queue before I ask those other things. Just looking at the size, at the proposed size increase of 44%, were there any reasons given by the industry of why that's needed?
Ms. Downing?
Thank you. Not that I'm particularly aware of. Actually, I would say that there was the super billboard that came forward, and it seems to be fairly common with the industry that these signs are getting wider. The technology of the EMD and the ability to make them. I've been told by other staff that the 3x6 was a standard size for a lot of years, but the industry is improving technology, and the larger signs are becoming more common.
So have we done any any research, or do we have any idea of what an average allowable size is in other municipalities? Would we be allowing above average, below average? Do we know that?
Thank you. Through the mayor, I think a lot of municipalities are currently reviewing their sign bylaws. Edmonton did an extensive review over the last 2 years. So if we do look at neighboring or at municipalities, the 3x6 is very common. That's what we see in a lot of other municipalities. However, the super billboards are in a number of municipalities, including Lethbridge. And what we are seeing with municipalities is that wider is becoming a more allowable bylaw size.
Great.
Or billboard size.
Great, thank you. And then my last question about size is, I'm aware we've got the super billboard on 108th, but other than that, have we granted any variances to allow bigger signs in the city? What I'm getting at is, are there any signs of this new proposed maximum already existing in the city?
Through the mayor, not that I'm aware of.
I see Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. And thank you for all your hard work on this. Administration signs, it seems to take up a lot of time here. Just a question on the amendment, and then I have just a quick follow-up. The minimum 6 seconds to 20 seconds, could it just be the minimum of 6 seconds? I know that you had it as amended, but why the 6 to 20 seconds?
Through the mayor, if I may respond to that. The way the bylaw was previously written was that it said a minimum of 6 seconds, and there wasn't an indication of a longer frame duration. It was clear with the number of applications that we're receiving that that was their expectation. They wanted 6 seconds, whereas the sign frame duration is actually dependent upon the legible viewing distance of the sign, and 6 seconds to 20 seconds is the recommendation that's been identified by the Transport Association of Canada, and it's their recommendation as the range in which we should be exploring. So my request for putting that in the bylaw was merely to advise applicants that you may not necessarily receive a 6 second frame duration. It does depend upon these other factors.
Okay, thank you very much. I understand that very clearly. So it looked like industry, as attached, they had a swing for the fences pitch. It looks like. How did they deal with the actual amendments after we put them in? Was industry relatively happy, or with what our administration had decided? I'm in agreement with what you guys have done, but how is industry feeling?
Thank you. Through the mayor, industry is adequately pleased with the amendments that were negotiated back and forth. So at the end of the day, they supported this amendment going forward as is and did not oppose the changes recommended.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. I'm just going to ask a question in the middle of the queue here. Just looking at the background and sort of the timelines, this first arrived as a request to committee. And I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I appreciate that administration did receive direction from council. Sorry, I don't remember the exact wording of the motion at the time. So, did we ask for it to come straight here, or did we ask administration to like? Has there been an intermediary step since the last time council saw this when the request was made?
Thank you, Mayor Given. The interpretation of the direction was to bring it forward to council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Back to the size of the billboards, I have two questions. One is the dimension that was recommended, or the square footage that was recommended, the same as the superboard that we approved a few months ago on Wapiti Road?
Thank you, Mayor Given. No, the super billboard is substantially larger than what's recommended here. I could look it up in the bylaw here, but this is not as large as the super billboard.
Thank you. That answers my questions.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Given. A kind of technical question, but I'm trying to understand for the electronic billboards, as we allow the size of them to increase, how does the light output of those get measured in terms of, is it a per pixel light output that we measure, or is it a total sign? Kind of what I'm getting at is, if a sign doubles in size, if I'm driving at night, will it look twice as bright as I'm driving past?
Through the mayor, if I may, the light outputs will be the same. It's just that it may be more noticeable given the increased size of the sign. But when the council first approved this bylaw back, I think in 2016, the light brightness, the luminance was set, I believe, at 750 nits, which is candelas per square meter. And I think during the daytime, we're talking about 10,000 candelas per square meter. So certainly, I feel that we are concerned with some of the signs more at nighttime rather than at daytime.
And if I may, one more question?
Councilor Rossi.
Great. And then my last question for management was, in the letter we received from industry asking for these amendments, they pointed to a problem that I've heard a lot in the community, and that's signs that predate this bylaw and have animations or are too bright or whatever like that. And industry requested that we do something about these signs that have been grandfathered in. I know that's a desire in the community too. Do we have any legal ability to do that, or have we ever looked into what it would take to get these older signs compliant with current bylaws?
Thank you. Through the chair, we did get a legal opinion about this, and with anything in the land use bylaw, what you're approved for is grandfathered when bylaws change. So typically, if somebody, builds a house, we can't change the rules and have them now comply with new rules. There is the issue of safety, and our legal opinion did say that if a very strong case could be made that something about that they were previously approved from had a safety implication, there would be an opportunity to attempt. However, typically, bylaws that are, or development permits that have been issued are grandfathered to the status in which they were approved.
If I may ask a couple questions along this line?
Sure.
So one of the things about electronic displays that's maybe an asset on our end is that they don't last forever. When the display gets to end of life and it's replaced, are we required to give it that grandfather clause, or would they need to reapply? And
thank you. They would have to reapply. And with the current development permit conditions that we were placing, we are putting in a condition that as technology changes, that new approval of a sign could be looked at to meet changing safety concerns.
Well, I like to hear that. And then my last question along this line, I think, is the sign that I hear the most questions about is at 108th Street and 100th Avenue, so across from Staples. I also noticed when IPS committee got a heat map of where most accidents in the city happen, that's a very dangerous accident we have in our city. Have we ever done an audit or looked at that intersection, if that sign's contributing to some of the accidents there?
Through the chair, if I can respond to that. Certainly, yes, we have undertaken road safety reviews of that intersection. As you quite rightly point out, it is one of the intersections that has the highest number of collisions within the city. I do support somewhat the consideration of trying to make existing signs comply. However, we do have the legal restrictions. Trying to prove that a particular sign is an issue is extremely difficult given the current methods of recording and capturing road traffic collision data. You're relying on the accuracy of the person to report that this was an issue, etc., etc. However, I would say that there is considerable research that demonstrates that the more a driver is exposed to worker overload, then the more they're likely to create a road traffic collision. And certainly by having something that is flashing and changing images more often certainly does include or consider it to contribute towards road traffic likelihood of a risk of a collision.
One question for administration in terms of public notification of the proposed amendments. Do we use sort of the typical processes in terms of advertising through the newspapers? What were the channels that we used to advise the public that these changes would be here this evening?
Thank you, Mayor.
Sounding?
We advertised in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks, at least 15 days before, or at least 5 days before the hearing. We advertise on our website, which is in excess of what's required, and we held stakeholder engagement meetings, which is in excess of what's required. However, we typically engage with the audience of what a bylaw amendment would impact. There was a lot more public engagement done for the actual signed bylaw review that took place over at least a year period. So at that stage, a lot of research was done, and none of these amendments contradicted the amendments that were done and the public engagement that was done at that stage. The existing signs and the brightness were an issue for the original review to be done, and still remain to be an issue that
may come up. Sure. Thank you. Okay, so I don't see anybody else in the queue with questions for administration. We can move on to the presentation submission portion of the public hearing. Is there anybody here who wishes to make a presentation or submission with respect to this, either in support or in opposition? Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and make a presentation to council? You flinched, and so I'm going to call you. If you'd like to come forward, you just come on down to one of the microphones, identify yourself for council, kind of can state your position, and we get a chance to ask you any questions.
All right, sure. Yeah, I'm Dave Meditek. I'm one of the stakeholders with Speed Pro Signs. We were very involved with the revisions and proposals and whatnot. I really wanted to just make sure everybody realizes that everybody on that committee is from Grande Prairie. We're for Grande Prairie. It isn't a business case that we want to make a whole bunch of more money. One of the things that happened when the revisions were made with the new bylaws is it made a lot of hurdles that were really unexplainable to customers on a daily basis. The size, one of the largest reasons for the revision in the size is back in the day when EMDs were first developed, they come in modules, and now that standard module doesn't fit the aspect ratio to what the existing bylaw states. So when you build a sign, well, you can go 2 feet shorter or 4 feet wider. So you kind of wind up in a weird, awkward zone. And you can go wider, but then in the software side, you have to blank out the size or the sides to fit the criteria. Or you special order a custom sign, which drives the price way through the roof. So it's the sizing is in alignment with what the industry has available. Is why I don't do a lot of, personally, we don't do a lot of the EMD stuff, but yeah, that's what it. I mean, we support it. It's just really generated to make business simpler and easier and get rid of some of the more clarity to what the revisions had in them. So I'd say I'm for it. And anyone has any questions?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Mr. Meditek. I see Councillor Thiessen in the queue.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I guess a follow-up to my second question earlier, but as a member of industry, do you feel like the revisions to our sign bylaw done by administration, do you think that creates more clarity and makes, I guess, putting in signs a lot easier?
Yeah, it definitely does. And I mean, we worked with all together, right? We sat down in the meetings, and this is our kind of a wish list, and we had open discussion as to why this would never go through, and sat and listened, like, okay, no, that makes sense, no problem. Yeah, it was a really good experience, and yeah, we worked together, and yeah, we're pretty cool with it all. So.
Awesome, great to hear. Thanks, Mr. Meditek.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Councillor Bressie.
Sorry, Mayor Given. So I just want to understand this. I just want to make sure I understand the sign thing. So the new proposal is on 3.6 meters height, 7.3 meters width. So that's what you're saying the standard module these come in is?
They come in components, okay. Right? So you it's like Lego, but it's like a Lego kit. You're always looking for the 2x4s. You stack them all together, but the bylaw says you need 2x4s and then 3 2x3s. And so then it doesn't, well, those exist in a custom aspect ratio,
Right.
which, it's been a while since I priced a custom, but it's about 25% more last time we did it. So it really, and you can go wider, but then anytime there's a software update or anything, then the person who actually operates the software has to go in and manually change. Otherwise, then the sign is now against bylaw.
Right.
So that's just one of the little things with it, right?
So, and then what's stopping it from going a little bit smaller to hit that aspect ratio? So taking off modules in that Lego kind of configuration?
But then everyone wants to maximize the size, right? So, and then it puts you under, and then when you get into your distance back from an intersection or from a road for viewing at 70 kilometers an hour, 80 kilometers an hour, all of a sudden your text size goes down. And so everything just kind of compresses down and readability goes down. So there's a lot of thought put into why we felt it would be right. Readability, right? So.
Thanks, Councillor Preston. So I just want to clarify, Dave, that sort of aspect ratio issue is specific to the billboard signs.
That's specifically to EMDs.
So electronic message displays on billboard size.
On billboards, yeah.
And so that aspect ratio is not a...
It is like on any other standard sign.
Maybe I'll just
they're
ask
a different application, right? So if you have one, let's say Alberta Computers, right? So that was a whole bunch of those were modules that were spaced for that one specific purpose, right? So they were able to build it and have it work. But when you go into the billboard, it's kind of a different offshoot of the industry that we're not actually in. I just know bits and pieces of it. And then you go with your standard sizing, and so you're either undersized. The one heading by on the way to Canadian Tire there's a double side. So one side of that is an EMD, and the other side is a static. And if you look, the static it's actually offset on the pole. You'll actually see the back side of the static sign when that's the standard, but they had to go with a smaller board. So then advertising is more of a challenge. Your copy is smaller. It all of a sudden becomes, it's cute and neat, but is it useful? So that's kind of where that all comes from.
Okay, thanks very much. I don't see anybody else in the queue with any other questions. Thanks very much for being here, Dave.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else here this evening that wished to present to council on this matter? Seeing no one, I see Councillor Thiessen in the queue, though.
Yeah, I'm prepared to make a motion if there's no one to speak against this.
Well, sure. Just I won't close the public hearing yet, so looking in the minutes from March 6th, it actually says the motion that was made actually asks administration to review the proposed changes and report back to committee. And so that step didn't happen. There may have been some other step that I'm not remembering or where there was an update, but I certainly don't remember a report with this level of detail. I think I'd like to have that opportunity to have that discussion. I think that there's a number of things that are very useful in here, and I would hate to defeat them or encourage council to vote against them when there's useful stuff. There are some items which I think are actually sort of public policy discussions about how big a signs do we want to have, how many do we want to have all across the community. And I'm a bit concerned that our approach to advertising for an issue that impacts a whole bunch of things across the land use bylaw, it's a bit more challenging to advertise that because you don't have the spot that you can go and put a sign. If it's a land-based issue where you're doing public notification, you go and stick a sign on the piece of land, and anybody that drives past that piece of land gets a chance to see it and hear about it and decide whether they want to come or at least go and read the sign. when we're something like this, if somebody didn't see it in the newspaper or on the city's website, then they wouldn't have any idea that this was happening. And I think that this is very public-facing. The implications of this are intended to be very, very public. They're intended for people to see. And so on that basis, I'd like to have a bit more discussion about the intent behind some of these. My preference would be to recess the public hearing and review the issues at a standing committee so we can have a little bit more discussion, or a council committee of the whole, and fine either way. And I think at least that step would ensure that there was a little bit of a public process that happened, where if the community was at all concerned about these issues, then they would have a chance to show up when it came back to council to have the readings. So if that was an interest to council, I certainly would support and encourage that, because, I mean, these are changes that are intended to be big things that people can see. And at least with one of them in particular, the changes to the third-party advertising on freestanding signs, I think there's a useful discussion and debate about that. So I'm just saying this now, based on the example of our last public hearing, where I would really like to recess this so we can have some of those discussions, have some community input, and then make our decisions. Councillor Thies, I see in the queue. Councillor Bressie also came in. I don't know if you had a question or discussion, or. Okay. So, Councillor Bressie.
Thank you. I really agree with your sentiment. I was going to vote against having third reading today for a similar reason. I like that even more. I don't know if there's any way to do this, but just pointing out that Councillor Friesen wasn't able to join us today, and if we come back to the public hearing, she doesn't get a vote when it comes back. So I don't know if there's any way to do it that she'd actually get a vote whenever this does come back if she's at the meeting.
If we haven't given, I'll look to administration, if we haven't given first reading, and if there is still an opportunity for public presentations or new information, then I think Councillor Friesen would have the opportunity to decide whether she wished to vote on it or not. Is that valid? Okay. I'm getting a nod that would be correct. Mr. Glavin?
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm just reviewing the minutes of the June 12th Infrastructure and Protective Services Committee, which was the meeting that the report was due back to committee. Planning and Development Manager Joe Johnson presented to committee with a verbal report on that item, that management held discussions with the delegation to address their issues and concerns, and is now prepared to bring forward an amendment to the land use bylaw to a future committee meeting for their to a future council meeting for their consideration.
And sorry, that was from June 12th?
Correct, the June 12th Infrastructure and Protective Services Committee.
So I'm just there. Did it, and I mean, we're all kind of going from memory, and the notes don't necessarily cover exactly. Did we discuss at that meeting the nature of the proposed amendments? Like, I'm not seeing it there, and you can tell that I'm concerned about a couple of particular things, and so I think I probably would have tweaked to them if we discussed them there. Yeah, Mr. Lavin?
Thank you, Mayor Gibbon. In the meeting minutes, it's under outstanding items, is where it was minuted. However, there was no formal report on the agenda. It was a verbal update or verbal report from Joe Johnson.
Yeah. Mr. Johnson, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
Just that when I presented to committee, I presented that, so I believe that the motion that was to report back to committee was on March 6th, I believe. And in the meeting that Mr. Glavin's referring to, I mentioned that we've reviewed the requested amendments and that we were confident that we could work with the sign industry to come up with a suite of amendments that could be presented back to council. And committee, it was a verbal report, and I don't know as there was a formal motion at that meeting or if it was just received for information, but my intent at that meeting was just to state that I was confident we could do something and we'd come directly to council.
Sure. Thanks very much for the clarification. And that being the case, it's possible that the committee members, including myself, like the administration down there, by not sort of saying, well, we should maybe see what this looks like, Councillor Thiessen.
Yeah, so I'm a bit confused now. I'm all about learning and new opportunities on council and recessing a hearing and getting more information. I'm not 100% certain if it's necessary, but I think you made a good case and you have some concerns. I think it might give, I really like the idea of the public being able to come out and as advertised and speak up to, for or against the sign bylaw. So my motion that I was prepared to make was to get this over with. I'm almost certain that our administration have done their due diligence and have worked countless hours on it. I understand that the last time we had this type of a hearing, we had a pretty sizable delegation of members from the public who came forward and spoke against the brightness to signs, the size of signs, and stuff like that. And I'd like to give them that opportunity. Just a question of process, though. If a motion were to come up to recess the public hearing and bring it forward to the next appropriate standing committee, which I would assume would be the Infrastructure Protective Services Committee, that's a votable thing, so council could shoot that down, decide to deal with that tonight as well, right?
Yes, it is votable. I think if there's a motion, it should be to recess the public hearing to a specific date. And so a future council meeting. And we have council meetings December 17th, January 14th, January 28th. So there are a number of future council meetings, I think picking one of those. And then there would be a number of committee meetings in between where we could review the issue. The public hearing, though, would come back to a regular council meeting. And in recessing it, there would be an opportunity, I believe, for any additional presentations or submissions.
So I guess if I was going to make a specific motion to that end, we have only one Infrastructure and Protective Services Committee meeting before the 14th, or would we have two?
I think, stand to be corrected, I think we have IPS meetings scheduled for the 11th of December, the 8th of January, and the 22nd of January.
Okay. All right. So I think if we have IPS shortly into the new year, then, I know administration's worked hard and I know the sign industry's worked hard, but I do like that public process. So I would move that council recess the public hearing until the January 14th, 2019 council meeting. And I'm not sure if I follow up with anything else or it's just period. And then I think administration has got clear direction to bring it forward to a future IPS committee.
Absolutely. I think we maybe include that and refer the issue to a appropriate standing committee for review.
All right, and so I will amend my motion to say that administration bring this report forward to the appropriate standing committee prior to that meeting.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. So a motion to recess is not debatable, and so we can. So we will vote on Councillor Thiessen's motion to recess the public hearing to a specific date in January, with the intention of giving administration direction to bring this report to a standing committee for discussion. Okay, please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. So this public hearing has been recessed and will come back at the date noted in Councillor Thiessen's motion. That handles all of our public hearing business for this evening. And we have no items under reports. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ressi, excuse me.
Sorry, while we're talking about signs, I want to try a motion, and if it's out of order, let me know. But we talked about a specific intersection that gets brought up a lot in our community, and I'd love to learn more about the legal side of it and more about options we might have there. So I'd move that we direct administration to bring back to the appropriate standing committee a report on traffic safety and advertising at 100th Avenue and 108th Street.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Ressi. I think that motion is in order. It's not date specific, and so you're not tying it necessarily to this other discussion. It could come when the information is available to the appropriate committee. Okay. Any discussion or debate on Councillor Ressi's motion? Councillor Thiessen?
Hi, Dylan. I appreciate your motion and the sentiment put behind it. I can't, however, support this motion. And the reason being is I don't know how hard our administration would have to work. I just don't know if there's enough empirical evidence that will state that digital signboard has actually been the cause of accidents. My assumption is it's people trying to beat a light, turn left or right, and I think that's going to come back. So for that reason, and not wanting to bog administration down with weedy work, I cannot support this motion, but I appreciate your sentiment.
Thanks, Councillor Thiessen. Is there any other discussion or debate? Councillor O'Toole?
Yeah, I totally agree with, thank you very much, Mayor Given, for letting me speak, but I totally agree with Councillor Chris Thiessen's opinion. I think that that is a very busy intersection. There's a lot of traffic that was going highway speeds that are now having to stop and turn left, and I think that might be most of the problem right there. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor O'Toole. And I'll just say I also won't support the motion. I think for a couple of the reasons identified, that there's a whole bunch of different issues at that intersection. And on top of that, I think our ability to actually impact, if we have a perception that the electronic message display that's near there is a problem, I think we have a pretty limited ability to actually impact that because it does have a standing development permit. So unless, you know, I'm not clear that we would have any ability if we found that that was a significant issue. I'm not sure that we have an ability under the rules to have an impact in it anyhow, and I'm not sure that we would find that conclusively in any case. So I won't support the motion. Anybody else that wishes to speak to the motion? Councillor Bressie to close.
Great. I appreciate what you guys are saying. I just point out that I heard a lot of I think, I assume, I'm not sure in those comments, and I really don't know what the ability is either, but I'd sure love to find out. This is a specific area that's been brought up to me by a number of people with a specific issue that the public feels is creating issues. And I think that we owe it to the public, who I'm sure haven't just brought it up with me, to at least take a look at this and to at least at a council level explore if we've got options. So I hope you guys will support this motion.
Thanks, Councillor Bressie. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. And that motion does not carry. And so we will... Nope. Nope, my vote's recorded correctly. I was open to Councillor Bressie's closing argument. So I'll move on, I guess, then to, if there's no other items arising from this, then we'll move on. We had no items of unfinished business, and we go into reports. Item 8.1, the 2019 operating and capital budgets. We have some recommendations coming to council from our council committee of the whole budget discussions. They're laid out in the report, and I don't know, Ms. City Manager or Ms. Walker, if you're going to give us a brief introduction. Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I have two recommendations that I respectfully submit to Council for consideration tonight. The first one is that City Council adopt the 2019 operating budget and adopt in principle the 2020 to 2022 operating budget as presented. The second recommendation is that City Council adopt the 2019 capital budget and adopt in principle the 2020 to 2022 capital budget as presented. So the document attached to this report represents the results of decisions made at Council Committee of the Whole deliberations that we conducted November 14th to 16th, 2018. The 2019-2022 business planning and budget cycle marks the beginning of a number of strategic initiatives that will set the course of our community and the city organization well into the future. 2018, Council approved a strategic plan that provided the framework for a new budgeting methodology. This was priority-based budgeting, and it will support a service delivery model review for every service that the city provides. The city organization is also embarking on a continuous improvement initiative, which will focus on the day-to-day procedures we utilize to ensure that we're efficient and effective as possible in the work that we do. Council has set a clear strategic direction for this business plan and budget cycle, and management is committed to achieving Council's strategic objectives and to a more robust and strategic annual budget review process. A rolling 4-year operating budget and a 5-year rolling capital budget will be presented in 2020 to adhere to the new legislation in the Municipal Government Act. Management is committed to achieving Council's strategic plan, and the work in 2019 will be primarily focused on the review of service delivery models, with the expectation that recommendations for change will be presented to Council for approval. This exercise will have a significant impact on the future year's budgets. Each budget year will be prepared and reviewed by management and Council in a much more fulsome fashion than in past years, and to ensure maximum organizational response to the changing needs in our community. I'm happy to answer any questions that Council may have.
Okay, thanks very much, Ms. Walker. Any questions or motions arising? Councillor O'Toole.
Mayor Given, if there is no discussion or no questions, I would be willing to make the motion.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Let's start with first. We'll handle them one at a time, operating first and then capital.
Okay, I move that Council adopt the 2019 operating budget and adopt in principle the 2020 to 2022 operating budget as presented.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Open for discussion and debate. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I'm really excited about this budget in terms of we're delivering a tax decrease, and we're doing that while increasing some really important services. So I'm excited about this budget.
Councillor Blackburn?
Reading one. It's the first reading.
Nope, this is a motion to adopt. There's no public hearing to adopt. Yep. Nope, thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. Happy to get the clarification. Councillor Bressie.
Overall, I'm very excited about this budget, and I love what management's given Council the ability to vote on. At the same time, I feel that I have to vote no on it right now, and that's because I think we're missing significant opportunity in this budget. That is, we're looking at refinancing a lot of debt, and that's something that in principle I've got no problem with. I think it can be a smart strategic move. I think it gives equity for current taxpayers. In principle, I've got no problem with a refinancing plan. That being said, I've got big issues with what we're doing with that money. The two things we're doing with it is we're building reserves. It'll take us 2 years just to rebuild the reserves to the level that we drew them down by paying the stop loss. And it makes no sense going forward that we'd build reserves by paying more for debt. That just makes no sense to me. And the other thing we're doing with it right now is we're giving tax relief of 1.5%, which I find commendable. I am committed to us finding tax relief. But this is 11 years of tax relief that we're paying $22 million for over 30 years. And I think if we want to find tax relief, we do that by doing the hard work of looking at our expenses and doing the hard work of developing other revenue sources. I don't think we do that by paying more for our debt over 30 years. I think there's so many opportunities we could do with this that would actually permanently make our community better, not just build reserves and relieve tax for 11 years. Examples of what we could do is we could spend a year or two allocating it towards getting rid of train whistles, and then turn to our community and say, what enhancements could we do that would permanently make Grande Prairie a better place to live? If we were really serious about ending homelessness and developing supportive housing, we could do a lot by allocating a couple $1 million to that every year for a few years. If we're serious about developing areas like Westgate or Hughes Lake, we could allocate this towards building roads and building water to enable development so that we can build our tax base and have tax relief in the long term. Or we could look at the Leisure Center, a site that we know that we need to put significant capital into over the next few years. And we could say we're gonna use this refinancing to pay cash up front, and that way we're really financing it with today's interest rates rather than interest rates that we know are going to go up in a couple of years when we're ready to do something on that site. So I love the budget itself. And I actually really like the idea of refinancing. I'm really happy that administration brought that option to us. But the course we're taking, I think we're losing a lot of opportunities. So that means that I feel that I need to vote no to this right now.
Okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Bressy. Any other discussion or debate? I don't see anybody else in the queue. I didn't. No, absolutely, Councillor Blackburn. But I'll just take the opportunity to say that I would encourage Council to support the budget as presented. And in saying that, I also have a sense of enthusiasm about the budget. I think it's great to see Council administration really marching on the same path here and making a commitment to finding opportunities to ensure that the services we deliver are the right services that are needed by the community and at a price that the community is willing to pay. I think we went through a significant amount of negotiation amongst our group during the budget process. And what we see today is the result of that in-depth negotiation, discussion, and debate on a whole bunch of different issues. And I'll be completely frank, I don't like everything in the budget. But that's the way that this goes, is that in a group of 9 people, we have a bunch of different votes on meaningful issues. And in the end, we may not each get everything reflected exactly the way we want. Is this a budget that I'm very proud of our organization for delivering? Yes. Does this budget do good things for our community? Yes. Does it set us on a better financial path? Yes. And so, in spite of the fact that there's some things that I would like to be different about the budget, or some votes that I would like to see go differently, I would encourage Council to support the budget as it's presented. We get an opportunity each and every year to make changes for the upcoming year, and specifically about addressing some of the major projects Councillor Bressy raised. Future councils, including this one, still have full latitude to choose to dedicate our resources to addressing any of those. And it may come, but we will have to be very thoughtful about it, and they will have to be a high priority because we would have to dedicate some of that room. We don't get a chance to do it within a cushion anymore. It would have to be things that we'd be willing to spend money on. And I think that that's a really deliberate process that we've set ourselves up for, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just means that when we want to do things, we'll have to be committed to it. And so rather than sort of taking a cushion and using it to speed up some of those projects, I think the projects need to stand on their merit, and when they do, I'll be the first to vote for them. But I would encourage Council to support the budget as presented on the basis of the fact that it's the result of a significant amount of negotiation. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Given. I'm gonna go back and forth on this one, but I will be supporting the motion. I can completely respect what Councillor Bressy's saying. I feel 100% the same way. But to Mayor Given's point, I think as a collective team, we sat here and we worked hard on getting the budget that we wanted. I don't like this part of the budget. I'm really disappointed that we're debt refinancing. I wish we could strip that out and have the budget stand without it. But I don't think that will pass with this council right now. So I want to go ahead and approve this budget as it is. I am incredibly disappointed that we're doing the debt restructuring though. So I do want to make that publicly known. I wasn't happy with that. I think that's not the best long-term solution for the community. Having said that, speaking to some people within the community, a minus 4.1 is going to help our economic development. I think it's going to go a long ways in the citizens' pocketbooks. I think the one slide we had was about $150 a month for the average homeowner, or a year, sorry. That's a substantial amount of money for people. And so I think for that reason, I want to support it. I'm just disappointed about the debt restructuring.
Thanks, Councillor Platt. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would echo your sentiments regarding the budget as a whole, and thank you for expressing yourself that way. I do have a question for Director Walker regarding the operating budget in principle for the following 3 years. I note that although we're looking at a saving of 4.1% in the tax burden for 2019, the amount that it looks like we're proposing for 2020 is an increase of about 5.25%, which completely negates what we accomplished for 1 year. And so my question relates to priority-based budgeting, and I wonder if you have comments about the possibility that, thanks to the work that administration will set out to do over the next year or so on priority-based budgeting, that we may be looking at changes by the time we look at 2020.
Ms. Walker?
Thank you, Mayor Given. Yes, that's exactly what we as a management group are committed to do. Councillor Blackburn, we are embarking on a series of reviews that will provide management with recommendations that we'll present to council, and subject to council's approval or not, will be impacting 2020 budget document. So prior to the fall of 2019, management will be endeavoring to absolutely reduce the impact of that 5.5%, which is essentially the result of the decisions that were made at Council of Committee of the Whole as a whole. So I can't guarantee an amount, percentage figure to you tonight, because I just don't know what that will be yet. But does that respond to your question?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Blackburn. I don't see anybody else in the queue, so I will call for the vote on Councillor O'Toole's motion. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor O'Toole, do you want to do the capital as well?
Yes, thank you very much again, Mayor Given. I move the council adopt the 2019 capital budget and adopt in principle the 2020 through 2022 capital budget as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate? Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Given. I'll be voting no again. I think I stated my reasons before and say that there's many other things in the budget that I didn't get my way on, and I'm fine with that. And if it was anything else, I'd be okay letting it go. That being said, this is a $22 million thing, and just because it's worth over $20 million, that's why I feel that this is something that I'm going to continue to vote no on. If it was a way more reasonable or a way lower amount of money, I wouldn't be as concerned. But this is a very, very, very large thing with 30 years of impact on our city. So that's why this is one thing that I feel that I can't let go, even though I really agree with the idea of supporting the consensus.
Thanks very much, Councillor Bressie. Any other discussion or debate? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And that takes us to our additional agenda item, item 8.2, public member appointments to city boards and commissions. Councillor Bressie.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Open to having this massage if I need, but I would recommend that council make the appointments to public boards and committees as recommended.
Okay, thanks very much. And so the list, the list of public member appointments includes appointments to the Arts Development Committee, the Combative Sports Commission, the Community Enhancement Advisory Committee, the Airport Commission, the Library Board, the Pursuit of Excellence Committee, Revolution Place Advisory Board, and the Subdivision Development Appeal Board. There are a number of different positions being appointed, and so sort of an omnibus motion. The public members that are being recommended will be contacted by administration, and their names will be recorded in our minutes as they were recommended and decided by council. Is there any other discussion or debate on that motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And that takes us into our committee business. And we'll start with item 9.1, Council Committee of the Whole Budget Meeting. And so this is, we should all be able to get behind this. This is the minutes from those meetings. Could I get a motion to adopt the minutes from the Council Committee of the Whole Budget discussions? Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would so move that we adopt those minutes from the Council Committee of the Whole meeting.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Are there any errors or omissions that we need to correct? Seeing nobody ringing in, then I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And Councillor Thiessen.
Oh, yeah, I guess we're on to my committee meeting here.
We do have in our package item 9.1.1, the 2019 to 2022 budget presentation.
Look at me getting ahead of myself. All right, I would move that council approve the 2019-2022 budget presentation.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Again, seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen, now we can get into your committee.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Given. Something happened on November 20th, and it was the Community Living Committee meeting, and I would move that council approve the minutes of the November 20th, 2018 Community Living Committee meeting.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Are there any errors or omissions that we need to correct? Again, seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. One order of business coming out of that committee meeting to council here tonight is a long motion, and it was in regards to Métis Local and the purchase of land and then a lease going over to Métis Local. So I would move that council direct management to purchase the land located at 9706 and 9708 100 Avenue for the sum of $282,000, utilizing funds from the Housing Reserve, and further move that council enter into a loan agreement with Métis Local 1990 to purchase said property, and further move that committee recommend council direct management to consolidate the 880 square foot piece of city-owned land after the purchase. So just speaking to this motion, this is a long time coming, especially for the folks at Métis Local. We've been in discussion with them through our administration for a long time to find something that would fit. For Métis Local, this is instrumental in them being able to build a second elders caring shelter. This would facilitate that greatly. Not supporting this motion tonight could produce an element of risk that it would put off the project for a lot longer, or they may not be able to realize it altogether. And for all of us who are concerned about money, this is all coming out of our housing reserve, so it will not affect any additional revenue or city funds, nor will it affect what has gone into it through our 2019 budget. This is all money that we have here existing through our 2018 funding, so there is no budget implications, and only promise and hope that our elders can be housed appropriately.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. Any discussion or debate on the motion? I don't see anybody in the queue, so I will call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Thiessen, anything else you'd like to highlight from that set of minutes?
I have a whole bunch here highlighted. I'm going to actually go over Director Miller's report. I would like to point out before I do that, though, that there was a motion coming forward from Councillor Bressy, who brought up trail safety in our Muskosipi Park corridor, and committee really appreciated that, and administration is going to return to our committee with a report on trail safety and any incidents that may have been reported for our citizens who have experienced it along the Bear Creek corridor in our River Valley area and otherwise. But to speak of some of the highlights of Director Miller's report, that conversations for community stakeholders, input on the community opioid response were completed through community social development. A public awareness video project for opioid response is wrapping up, and education on the permanent supporting housing unit at the Parkside Hotel Inn was offered to businesses, condo owners, and residents in the College Park area. That just happened relatively recently, November 26th and 27th, so last week. The Neighborhood Outdoor Rink program is off to a good start. 22 rinks run on a volunteer basis as of November 14th. City Parks Administration had developed or had brought them the necessary equipment to set up their rinks, and that was all volunteer-led to build it. The Parks Department has also provided locations and status as of October 2018 of the edible plants within the city. So it says that it is attached here, and it is so. I guess it's not relevant when the snow's on the ground, but if you want to check your committee meeting minutes or ever call the Parks Department, we have everything from plum trees to cherry trees to apple trees, hascaps, saskatoons, blueberries, strawberries located all across the city that our administration has been planting. So this is to help feed our people and some of the wildlife too, but hey, they deserve a full belly as well. Also, we had another neighborhood association form in the Crystal Heights Ivy Lake area. It was signed up roughly about 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. The only one left in our fair city is the Patterson neighborhood. So if anybody wants to twist Helen Rice's rubber arm and tell her to get going on a new neighborhood association, I know she lives in that area, so maybe she's the one to get to it. Also, there was a lot of questions that came up from budget, and Director Miller did his due diligence to bring that to committee as well. And it is in your minutes, but I will report on them for the viewing public who are here right now. One in regards to the Eastlink Center lockers was a $200,000 capital item in 2021. They will be a keypad locking system, and there's a possibility for locker rental options coming forward and potential revenue sources. Also, the pool sanitation system that this councillor alluded to being denied back in 2015-18 budget. It was estimated at a cost of $600,000. Administration has worked out the best possible deal going forward in this budget is only going to cost $200,000. It will have some maintenance costs associated through the life cycle, but administration said they will try to keep costs down as low as possible. There was a question about the Rock 97 room at the Revolution Place, the $75,000 in 2020. The vision for the space is to open up the wall and create a premium patio space that'll be a nice place to watch hockey and sporting events, although it will not be conducive to concert spaces, but it will be hopefully a revenue generator. And the projected revenues are moderate for the space: 11,500 in 2019, 23,000 in 2020, 31,000 in 2021, and a decrease in 26,000 in 2022. I think those are just modest guesses on what we can make off of the space upon development. And flooring in the Bose Event Center, that came up during budget for $350,000 in 2020. And the report coming back at committee is that the flooring is worn down almost to the concrete in some areas. And if the renovations are not complete here, management expects to have a more difficult time booking the space for weddings and other events. And this could directly impact revenue for that space area. All in all, that was our committee meeting. I look forward to the trail safety report coming forward and future reports from our Director of Community Living. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen. We'll move on to 9.3, the Corporate Services Committee. Councillor Blackburn, was that, or Councillor O'Toole, sorry. That was yours. By all means, don't let me get in your way.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I would like to move the council approve the minutes of the Corporate Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, November 20th, 2018, as presented.
Very much, Councillor O'Toole. Any discussion or debate on that set of minutes? Are there any errors or omissions that we need to correct? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor O'Toole.
Yes, we had one item of discussion that we have a motion to come out of, and that motion is council review and approve the 2019 Business Improvement Area, also known as the BIA, budget at the City Council meeting in Council Chambers on Monday, March 11th, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. And further, council direct administration to notify the businesses within the BIA of the above date by letter accompanied by a copy of the proposed 2019 BIA budget.
Thanks very much, Councillor O'Toole. And Councillor O'Toole, I recognize that's how it was recorded and maybe how it came from committee. I'm just reflecting on it now, and the motion says council review and approve the budget. I wonder if it should be that we council review the budget and then we're stating the date that we're going to review it, because I'm not sure that we can prejudge that we're going to approve it on that date. I think we have to leave at least open the possibility that if somebody showed up and said that they wanted to see something changed, that would be possible. So I just think as a matter of process, I think it's maybe just that we review it.
Okay. I get the whole concept, but people that aren't necessarily familiar with the process may not get it. So we'll make that change.
Thanks very much. So if we can just recognize that as council review, the 2019 business improvement budget. Any other discussion or debate?
Not for this, no.
Councillor Bressie.
Sorry, just a question for management, and my apologies. I know I asked this last time around, but I've forgotten. That letter, does that go to building owners or to business owners?
Ms. Walker?
Thank you, Mayor Given. The letter goes to the business owners.
Thanks very much, Ms. Walker. Any other questions, discussion, or debate? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Toole, anything else to highlight?
Just a couple of items. Corporate Services Director gave us a verbal update on a number of areas. Assessment and taxation. The assessors are working on next year's assessments as we speak. Corporate facility management. There's been some lease agreement renewals being finalized with groups who lease space in city-owned buildings. Finance, once again, is working on the 2019-2022 budget with amendments being made last week, which we passed today. Human resources, information technology services, and procurement. In the last little bit, we had 70 surplus assets that have been sold through the fleet and parks departments on gov deals. Procurement staff have successfully completed public sector procurement certifications and now preparing for the year end. And one other one, we had a presentation by our taxation department on the downtown assessment and taxation. We have one item left on our outstanding items list, and that just means that our crew is working extremely hard to get it down there with good council support. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Toole. We'll move on to item 9.4, Infrastructure and Protective Services, and Councillor Blackburn, I think you stepped in for us on that one.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that Council approve the minutes of the Infrastructure and Protective Services Committee meeting held Tuesday, November 27, 2018, as presented.
Thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. Any discussion or debate on the Infrastructure and Protective Services Committee meeting minutes? Seeing none, no errors or omissions that we need to change, I will call for the vote to adopt them. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. Councillor Blackburn, any items of note from that? I remember that being a relatively short meeting, and you and I were...
Yes, it was a relatively short meeting, and there's only a couple of things that I would highlight. In the report that we got from Mr. Manuel and Mr. Glavin, three things to highlight. One is that the Community Enhancement Advisory Committee awarded 2 grants at their November meeting. One to Hillside School for a tower garden, and one to Highland Park Neighborhood Association for the addition of native plant nectar species as part of the Edible Parks Initiative. In transportation, this is an interesting bit of information about snow removal. As of the date of this meeting, which was the 27th of November, residential snow clearing had started on November 19th, and by the 21st, there had been 1,576 tandem loads of snow hauled from city roads. So we're off to an impressive start. And under enforcement services, just to mention that enforcement is carrying on their partnership with the RCMP on joint operations traffic check stops leading to the holiday season. And I hope that will lead to some safe and happy holiday celebrations during the year. We spoke about a letter from the Urban Development Institute, and just to summarize, there will be a working group that will be reviewing planning regulations as a result of a request from the Urban Development Institute to reconsider limits on low-density housing, and I'm sure we'll learn more of that as it progresses. Those are the only things I wanted to highlight. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. And thanks very much for stepping in to chair that meeting. Have we finished all of our committee business? Well, seems like it was so short. We have no items of correspondence this evening. We did have 2 delegations present. The Métis Local, I guess, the item that they were addressing was dealt with on our agenda, but the Youth Council certainly, their presentation and update was not, and so maybe we could get a motion to receive that for information. Councillor Bressy.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would move that we accept the Youth Council update for information.
Thanks very much. Any discussion or debate on the motion? Seeing none, then I'll call for the vote. Please vote. Thank you. That motion carries. And if we're finished with delegation business, then we have no notice of motion this evening, and we'll move into council member reports. Councillor Blackburn, you let me know that you had Grande Prairie Airport Commission. We'll just get your
Thank you. The Airport Commission met on the 22nd of November. We learned a few things. Interesting to see year to date that passenger movements through the airport are up 8.8% over 2017. There have been increases each month in the most recent quarter. The air carrier winter schedules have been fully implemented, and Air Canada overnighter Head Start flight to Edmonton was removed. The overnighter Head Start means to say that typically people have been able to travel to Edmonton and back on the same day because there has been a plane sitting on the tarmac overnight and ready for an early start. Airport is quite concerned about the fact that that service isn't available through the winter from Air Canada, and we're certainly having discussions with Air Canada about that. However, my past experience is that that's not going to change this winter. I could point out that the WestJet schedule for the same period has not been changed. The 20-year master plan for the airport was approved for the years 2018 to 2038 and identifies future development of the airport in all sectors and realigns the lands needed for operations and development well past 2038. And a public version will be available on the Airport Commission website in January. That covers all of the pertinent points for the meeting on the 22nd.
Thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. Thanks for the update, and anything you can do to get that early morning flight back would be appreciated for those people who have commitments in Edmonton. Councillor Palat.
Thanks, Mayor Given. Just had an update with the Downtown Association. We had a board meeting this past week. Just some couple notes on that. First of all, Vegas Night apparently was a huge success this year, so that's great to hear. Lots of positive comments and feedback on that. Another one, I want to give a shout out to Director Miller on this. He worked closely with Wendy from the Downtown Association to repurpose all the old bike racks, garbage stands and everything, so they're going to be reused at other facilities around the city, which is nice to see us reusing some of those things instead of setting in storage. And lastly, this won't come as a surprise. There was lots of conversation about Phase 4 and this little bit of disappointment, or a lot of disappointment from some board members on there. So don't be surprised if there's some conversation coming back from the Downtown Association about future phases and how we get that back on a capital funded list. But good conversation, some empathy of why and why not it didn't happen, but definitely some concerns and wondering how we do capital projects moving forward. And so, you know, looking at that to come to a committee. Thanks.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Platt. Were there any other reports from the external agencies, boards, or commissions? Seeing none, then we'll start with Councillor Bressie for Council Roundtable.
Thank you. I think my highlight last couple of weeks was going to the FCSS conference, and that's something I understand is not usually represented by the city, but I'd really encourage my fellow councillors to take a look at attending next year. It was one of the best conferences I've been to. In terms of, I appreciated about half the attendees were politicians and half the attendees were staff, and that was a really great mix to get diverse insights. It was, the keynote speakers were great. Highlight was Gord Downey's brother was there talking about the last year of Gord's life, and I didn't realize that that was dedicated to telling the story about a little boy named Charlie who tried to walk home from his residential school and froze in the winter, and it was a very interesting story. It was a very moving story, and I think it really was a great reminder of why reconciliation, and working with our Indigenous community is so important. But it was the first conference I've ever been to where both keynotes and every seminar I went to was actually useful. There were no snoozers, no irrelevant content, and I've never had that at a conference before. It was also good access to government in terms of I got to a conversation with Minister Ceci, conversation with Minister Larrabee, and I got to talk to a few government MLAs too. So it was actually better access for me than I even get at AUMA. So it was a real winner of a conference that I'd really encourage a few of you to join me in next year, because I'll certainly be going again next year.
Very much, Councillor Bressy. We'll move next to Councillor O'Toole.
Thank you very much, Mayor Given. I did a number of things this last couple of weeks. On Saturday, we had International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and it was very well attended. We gave out a Community Commitment Award to Mr. Tom Pura. He's been involved in so many things in the community that the list was so long that we never got to go through the entire list. We also had the award for the Premier's Council, and that was to the ACT Club in Grande Prairie for all the things that they've done to include not necessarily disabilities, but abilities, and highlighted the abilities that people have. And so it was a very nice, humble experience being there. And this is a number of years I've been involved, and we're looking forward to next year. So thank you.
Very much, Councillor O'Toole. Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mayor Given. Just an update on an event that I had an opportunity to attend with Councillor Plott. As most people know, each year we try to send a couple councillors to the equivalent of the AUMA event, so the Rural Municipalities Association event. So Councillor Plott and I had an opportunity to attend that. There was lots of great sessions, as well as an opportunity to talk to local rural municipal politicians on issues that we see down the road, as well as an opportunity to talk in a more casual arena where you can sometimes have an open and honest conversation. So it was a great opportunity. Some of the sessions were very applicable to things that we're working on, and some of the sessions were very rural focused. So overall, I would encourage council that we continue with that initiative to send a couple councillors each year. I don't think, in my opinion, it's something I would go to every year. I went once last term, and I think it was good to attend this year, but I think it's a good initiative that we started, and I encourage council to continue that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Clayton. Councillor Minhas.
Thank you, Mayor Will Given. I was taking it easy. I was going away to repair my knees, so I didn't spend too much time outside. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Minhas, and hopefully you're feeling better. We'll move on to Councillor Plott. Councillor Plott, you'll just have to get your microphone there.
Sorry. Thanks. Yeah, I guess a couple for me. RMA was definitely a highlight, as Councillor Clayton alluded to. It was nice to realize just how similar some of our problems are, but just how different we are from rurals with some of the stuff as well. And maybe some of the reasons why we butt heads from time to time is we actually just fundamentally do think a lot differently. So, but it was great. I appreciate the hospitality that we received from the county council and their administration while we were there. The other highlight I had was the Santa Day Parade. I hadn't done it. It was my first time. I appreciate Councillor O'Toole and Councillor Thiessen helping the newbies out and showing us the ropes on what we're supposed to do out there. So that was good. And lastly, just we had an Aquaterra shareholder meeting, and I, the community is constantly talking to us about Aquaterra, or I feel like I'm getting constantly talked to about it. But I have to say, I'm really appreciating the transparency and the level of involvement they're giving council. I feel like we've had lots of conversations with them, and I think that conversation is going to go a long ways about the shape of Aquaterra and maybe the city's future with Aquaterra as well. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Plott. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you, Mayor Given. A couple of very interesting events that I was happy to attend over the last couple of weeks. One was the opening reception for the art gallery's exhibition called Ichiku Kubota, and it was, as I mentioned at our last meeting, the very, very colorful kimonos that are on display there. It was amazing to see, and I highly recommend that everybody between now and middle of February, when it ends, everybody get a chance to go and see it. I also attended the Peace Country Rising Stars finals as a guest of the GPRC students that were putting it on, and got to watch some pretty amazing talent, including our talented MC, Mr. Thiessen. And I'm very pleased to see the amount of talent that GPRC students are prepared to showcase through this wonderful event. And I believe that at the same time they also raised some money for their charity. I've forgotten. Oh yes, Rotary Exchange Food. Yep. At any rate, very well done on behalf of the students and the college for putting it on. I guess those are the only ones I'll comment on for now. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Blackburn. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you, Mayor Given. I would have been a little more clear. I think it was Uganda, Ethiopia. Well, you just remembered? Okay. Anyways, I had a glorious weekend return. I was away for a funeral over the last week, so I had to cancel a lot of events. But coming back to Christmas was wonderful. It started with the city Christmas staff party. I was so happy to see our staff be able to not only put together a great party to celebrate all the hard work done over the year, but to see them actually cut loose and have fun with each other. I think it was one of the best attended Christmas parties I've ever been to. They were claiming on stage that it was the most attended ever. All I know is that Councillor O'Toole and I sat with all the RCMP detachment, and the table was full, and I think it sat about 45 people. It looks like he's chiming in.
I think they were trying to keep an eye on us.
I think they were trying to keep an eye on me. That's how it goes. But then the Santa Claus played, as Councillor Platt alluded to. Councillor Bressie also partook with us in giving out the candy, as well as some of our children. Well, my child at least. I put him to work, and he did really, really well. I don't know if you'd follow my lead, because Councillor O'Toole, he's got this baby down, and I tend to fall behind. I was about half a block behind the last float. I had to run up just to catch up, but it was great there. And then to be there for the Christmas tree light up and caroling. Probably the worst caroling I've ever done in my life, but the carolers behind me were incredible. It's just unfortunate that the mic was closer to my face than it was to theirs. I think I was bringing their performance down, and they were trying to harmonize me. And that was all the big prelude. I think like watching a train wreck or a car crash, we gathered a big crowd for the mayor to light up the Christmas tree. And as always, Mayor Given gave some good holiday greetings and was able to somehow light the tree with that magical button. I didn't even see it go down, but the tree lit up, so thank you very much for that. Finally, it felt like Christmas today because I was hanging out with Councillor O'Toole and Councillor Bressie with a whole bunch of kids who wanted to know all about municipalities. Now, technically, we usually go to the schools to talk to grade 6 students about this. We had a contingent of 3 classrooms come here to ask us all questions about how the city of Grande Prairie operates and on what level. There's a bit of it you'll see when Mayor Given finishes us off. You've seen it all night every time his pretty faces come up. But the kids gave us a signed collage of all the students that came. They actually had 3 of them. We got 1 of them. We put it under Bill's thing. But it was just great to take part answering the questions with Councillor O'Toole, Councillor Bressie. I think we played it really, really well. A couple things I learned is not only does Councillor O'Toole look like Santa Claus, but he gives like Santa Claus too. He had a whole bunch of packages set out for all the kids based on all the different levels of government. You knew that he was spending some time putting that together. Councillor Bressie is louder than me. SDAB actually had to come in here and tell me to keep the voice down, but it was Councillor Bressie that was yelling, which was kind of funny to see. But the kids are all entertained, and I think they got their questions asked, and they might have learned a thing or two. So it was a pleasure to do that with you, gentlemen, on behalf of the mayor. And that's all I'm going to talk about. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Councillor Thiessen, and thanks to the three of you for taking that on. To have that many busloads of kids show up at City Hall was great to see, and really appreciate all the work that you did to share with the kids about local government. I will just update a couple things. First off, I had the pleasure to bring greetings on behalf of Council at the 4A Provincial High School Volleyball Championships opening ceremony. I want to congratulate the organizers for putting on a great event. It's always a pleasure when we can host the province in our community, and want to recognize that the host team, I believe the Charles Spencer ladies, actually took home some medal in the provincials, and so congratulations to them. The following day, I was here at City Hall for the entire working day on a conference call on the Municipal Governance Committee, on AUMA's Municipal Governance Committee, so rather than traveling to Edmonton, if there were some better flights, maybe I would, but I was able to participate in that. And one of the major topics, two major topics on that committee were, number one, some of the changes to the Local Authorities Election Act with respect to election financing that will impact any local officials and including school boards, actually. Some of the changes are going to set to impact people running for school districts as well. So I would encourage council and the community to make sure that they're informed about the changes that are being proposed with respect to election financing and donations, contributions, and record keeping. And then the other one was we had a presentation from Alberta's, the Alberta Provincial Ombudsman. The Ombudsman's scope has been increased to include municipalities, and the Ombudsman was there to present about their process and what it typically looks like. Essentially, the Ombudsman is an opportunity for citizens to take forward concerns about administrative fairness. And so they don't get an opportunity necessarily, if they don't like a decision that we made, they can't go to the Ombudsman and say, hey, my city council made a stupid decision, because we sometimes make those. And those are just political decisions. They can say, hey, this issue that I was impacted in by my municipality, I wasn't dealt with in a fair way by the processes that were in place. So there's a bit of a distinction there, and the Ombudsman's intention is to work with municipalities to identify where the processes might fall apart, what could be done to ensure that citizens receive the information that they need, and what municipalities can do to improve their processes. So far, since they've started that increased scope, they've had a few engagements with municipalities, but they really characterize it as the Ombudsman finding out more about how municipalities operate and a dialogue with the administrations that they've had interactions with. So it was interesting to sort of note that there is another level of provincial oversight with respect to the way we do our business that people might not be aware of. And then finally, I wanted to highlight that this Saturday I went to the Salvation Army to make the proclamation on behalf of both the city and the county. Councillor Reeve Beaupre wasn't able to attend. We were scheduled to do a joint proclamation marking Addictions Awareness Week. And so it was my pleasure to do that on behalf of both the city and the county at the 4th annual Walk for Sobriety. And just wanted to recognize that we have many people in our community who are struggling with addictions. And it was great to see so many supportive people, supportive organizations who are ready and willing to help represented there. And so I just want to thank the organizers for that opportunity, and for the organizations that are doing that work in our community on a regular basis. And with that, Councillor Clayton, you had something additional?
Sorry, Mayor Given, it just wasn't really touched on, and I thought I'd bring up that some of Council had an opportunity to attend a presentation from the Arctic Winter Games Bid Committee. And during that presentation, we had saw the video that is sort of, it was the first phase of it. We had an opportunity to have some input. A couple things there. I wanted to thank administration that is currently working on that bid committee package. It's been an intense amount of work from administration and community volunteers, so I really appreciate the work that's been put into that. I also encourage council and people within our community to keep an eye out for the momentum as we build towards the tour on the day that the bid committee comes to assess our community. There will be a lot of information going out probably in the next week, but also a lot more after Christmas as we build momentum towards the day that in January where the evaluation committee is coming. And so January 14th is the evaluation day. You will see lots of information on that, and I strongly encourage council and everyone to get on board behind this opportunity. Thanks.
Councillor Clayton, and with that, we'll call our meeting adjourned. Thank you.